Yesterday, December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy.
As President Roosevelt delivered his famed address, America was on the verge of complete hysteria. Hatred and suspicion mounted against all things Japanese, and a minority found themselves the victims of cruel racial prejudice.
That's how I felt like I was an American, but after Pearl Harbor that kind of changed because I looked like the enemy. So,
tied to Japan only by their ancestry, these Japanese Americans desperately pleaded their patriotism and loyalty to the United States. Many Nisei men tried to enlist in the war, but were turned away, told that they were classified enemy alien. 2 months later, the sheer innocence and loyalty of the Japanese American community was overcome by hatred, prejudice, and suspicion. On February 19, 1942, more than 120,000 people of Japanese ancestry were unjustly relocated and incarcerated in 10 detention camps placed in remote locations across the United States. Eager to prove their patriotism and loyalty to the United States, thousands of Nisei men enlisted in the Army, where they served as members of the Military Intelligence Service, the 100th Infantry Battalion, and the highly decorated 442nd Regimental Combat Team. Yet, the irony of the 442 story is that while they were fighting for American freedom and democracy, the country and ideals they were giving their lives for had no faith in them as a people. Throughout the war, their families remained tragically incarcerated, despite the fact that the 442nd had proved their patriotism by becoming the most sought-after unit for combat. In the face of extreme injustice, Japanese Americans remained fiercely patriotic and loyal to the United States. In the years after the war ended, formal apologies were offered to the Japanese American community by political and military leaders alike. Time and time again, they affirmed that this dark chapter of American history should never be repeated. Two 2017 marks the 75th anniversary of the Japanese American internment. Today, the story of the World War II incarceration and the decades of racial discrimination and government surveillance against Japanese Americans which preceded it is more relevant than ever. Many parallels can be drawn between the Japanese American wartime experience and contemporary controversies we face today. An editorial published in the LA Times states that the simplest and clearest lesson from the exclusion and internment is that it is wrong to view entire populations as monoliths, and to attribute to all members of a group the characteristics of a few. This is at the heart of what it means to not be prejudiced. Like the LA Times, Seattle-based organization Densho argues that understanding the Japanese American wartime experience offers opportunities for difficult, thought-provoking conversation. It also raises important questions about our constitutional rights. How does a democracy weigh individual rights against national security? Who is considered a real American? Does this change during times of fear? As we wrestle with today's controversies over immigration, terrorism, and the violation of civil liberties in the name of fear and hysteria, we must maintain a firm grip on our core constitutional and human rights. Keeping memories of the incarceration alive gives Japanese Americans the power and responsibility to speak out when other groups are unfairly targeted because of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexuality, or other identity. Having once been the victims of such discriminatory policies, Japanese Americans are acutely aware of what it means to be targets of hatred and prejudice. As Japanese Americans, we can and should honor the past by using our voice to advocate for others.